So this is a platform that I had actually built, like the whole thing, right? So now typically when you start building an application, so APIs obviously is one thing that will be quite useful. It is also useful for you to create like a front end and like showcase it to people. Forget about all the authentication and stuff. That gets a little bit more complicated, but makes sense to have simple UIs. Okay. I think I forgot the passwords, but like makes sense to have like simple UI where you can showcase your product pretty much easily. Okay. Now, how do we get to a stage where you can play around with these UI components, what to insert where, how to show the information, how do you connect your APIs? So how do you make that possible is what we want to cover in this session. So in just summarizing the whole thing, so I know the session you should have an idea of like we are going to use a framework called NextJs. It's pretty easy to get started. It has its own problems. I'll talk about those, but it's pretty easy for it to get started and running. How do you set up a project? How do you do like basically the vibe coding stuff? What are the things that you should be cognizant about while using building these things? And finally, how do you deploy it to production? Okay, so all of these things are very easy. We should be able to do it in the next. Okay, so that's kind of the whole idea. Now, a few things. Even if you don't follow, just feel free to stop me when and where, like then and there, so that we can explain these things. We can even take another session if it is required. Second, the instructions, something I have already posted on the website. This doesn't explain how things and why things are the way they are, but if you simply follow it, you will be able to set up your entire front end. Okay, so that's all it takes. It's not like a big deal. And third, this entire YouTube video will go on YouTube, so you can look at that also. Okay. Cool. With that out of the way, any questions before we start?
No,
it's not. Okay. Cool. See, when I mean, most of you are from a technical background, so I'm sure you understand. But when we think about front end, like there are, I like to separate this out into three parts. Okay. So one is the information that you actually show, like basically your what you call is if you go to inspect and you go to these elements. So the one is, what are the HTML basically, like what is the content that actually goes in there. The second thing is basically your CSS. CSS is basically how it is built. What should be the space I should give? What is the alignment? What is the font? What is the size of the font? Whether it should be a border or not a border, right? These small things we make a lot of difference in modern applications. So that's the CSS. And finally, there is a JavaScript, which is for advanced logic and computation within the front itself. So these are three parts that actually go into this. Okay. Now, unlike like based on my experience, right? So I can understand logic, and because I'm a product manager, I used to be a product manager. I could understand a sequential step of things. So Python was very straightforward. But NextJS or any front end is extremely complicated. You spend a lot of time making sure the alignment and other things are actually right. So it's kind of like a black hole. If you don't fully understand, it takes a lot of time. You might have to spend a lot of time. Okay, I'm just telling you upfront so that you are aware of these things. It's not as straightforward as Python, but still, like we'll try to set up the basics. So for me, especially like this spacing or the alignment is very important because that's how I am. Like when you are very finicky about it, it sometimes takes a lot of time. Sometimes it is impossible to do. I did a lot of rework on these projects for me to kind of like make these things work. So that's a disclaimer of that. Okay. Now let's try to build something very simple. So if you remember our Newzero app, what we had is last time Praveen built. So we had this API, like we had an ability to say for which user for a mobile number, what is the topic I'm interested in, which topic I'm interested in. And once you say what is your topic of interest, you will be able to get a summary. So we built an API for that. Okay, so these videos are already up on YouTube if you have not seen it. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create a simple UI to consume these APIs. Okay, so I created a small mock diagram, which is this moment. So you have like your logo sidebar. Sidebar may you have today's news, so you can show the summary and links in this way. And you finally have a setting. Settings will basically do creation of these user preferences. Okay, so this is essentially what we are actually trying to build today. So let's see how we can actually do this. Okay. Now, to start with, we are using a framework called NextJS. Okay, so NextJS is a like a React-based framework that is built by this company called Vercel. Okay, so they provide deployment also. The best part is you can easily deploy it on Vercel. It is free, and I have a bunch of projects. It is free for to a reasonable extent, unless you are going to massively scale. It is then it becomes very expensive. But to all the projects that I have, these are all the projects I have. All the projects that our website today gets about what 50 visits a day or so, for up to probably like 1,000 and even 5,000, 10,000 visits a day. It is free unless you are planning to migrate. It is okay, but it is very difficult to move out. Is what I have heard about. So just be a little cognizant of that. Shainam, yeah.
No, that's a mistake.
Oh, sorry. So it's very difficult to move out is what I have learned recently, but it's not impossible. One, and second is it is a very nice place to get started and host it much easier. Okay. And second, so there is a framework we are going to use which is going to do all of those. Second, what we are actually going to do is there is this thing called Vidhi.
There are a bunch of JS frameworks, right?
Yeah.
Any reason for picking up Next.js? I understand the deployability part, but any other reasons?
So one is, see, I did a bunch of readings about all these different frameworks. One thing that I found with Next.js is it has some inbuilt performance improvements like SEO, etc. Okay, so I found it to be a better. Again, I'm not a developer, so I can't comment full-fledged on this. But compared to other, there is one more framework called Vue.js, which a lot of people recommended. It's much faster, but it doesn't support a lot of API integrations. So those capabilities were less. So Next.js was very good on both fronts, and the SEO parameters were very high. Like for example, if you so there is a site called, I'm sure you guys know this, page speed called web.dev, so which is for measuring the page speeds of your SEO page speeds for your sites. So Playday.club. So previously I used to have Webflow. My Zor website was on Webflow. Now I've done an Express app, etc., which gives me about 89% speed or whatever. So that's the best I could actually achieve. But this site is built on Next.js. I pretty much didn't do much effort. Let's see what is the score. So pretty much most of the things are actually okay. This could be improved a little bit, but even this is on mobile even, and desktop it will even be much better. Right. So overall, SEO parameter seems much faster, and they also talk about a lot of performance improvements that these guys actually do. Like Vercel constantly keeps doing. So and the community is pretty active, and whoever talks about it, they all talk about Next.js. The only problem they have is that deploying Next.js and Vercel gives you a lot of capabilities, which is very difficult for others to replicate. So that's what they say. There is even a news article recently, Next.js Hacker News. So this is a news article I saw a few days ago, 3 days ago it came. So which talks in detail about this guy talking about why Next.js is actually bad. I mean, not bad, but like why they created in a way very difficult for you to move out, etc. So it's a very insightful article, but for me it didn't matter so much because I'm not looking at scale right now, or it even holds for like 10,000 scale, etc. Whatever. So I'm not too worried about it. Okay. So just like before, yeah. So when you are looking at production use cases, just like think about it.
Got it. Thanks.
No worries. Cool. So now, all right. So we spoke about like the framework, which is like Next.js. Then there is another thing called ShatCN. So if you are on Twitter, you would have seen this. This is an amazing framework. Somebody had actually built and open sourced it. So basically, what it does is it gives you these components out of the box. So I gave you, for example, if you look at any of my projects. On this one. Okay, where are my projects? All right. So if you see my projects, so basically what I do is every box, every calendar widget, or your tables or whatever. So everything is basically like a component. Okay. Where is component? So if you go to UI, you'll have this dialog box, card, chart, etc. So all of these things are there. What these guys do is they create a code for this and they publish it as a framework here. So each of these components. So using these components, you can build these beautiful dashboards. So you don't have to really worry about all the alignments, corners, font for each of these tables, etc. So they kind of like black box it and put it over there. You can directly use those components. Your product comes out much more beautiful. But a lot of people are using this, so it's becoming very standard for all of these applications. But except for your landing page, I would recommend you use all of this. So it is much easier and like amazing framework for you to use. Okay, so it looks beautiful out of the box. You should see all the components they have. Like it's very well done. Okay. Now, so we're going to use this. Third is for database, we'll use Supabase like we did in the last time. The difference over here is, see, there are sometimes you have to build a backend and use it, or sometimes you can directly integrate with the from the front end. You can go to the database. So Supabase provides API. So what I do is, I don't know, you guys have to tell me what's the best practice. So far, I've seen it is okay. Any application complex code, I build a backend in Python. I integrate with the front end. For any other normal database operations like authentications or your creating a new record or updating a few things, etc., I can directly use the Supabase APIs. So this is what I actually do, and it seems to be a fairly fast process. Like most of my APIs calls happen within like 200 seconds or so, which I know it's still relatively slow in engineering things, but most of my page in my applications load within a second, so which seems pretty fast if we are looking at something like this. So these are the things that we are going to use. So Shartsian, NextJs, and Supabase. So again, all these details, how to install all of those are present here. You can look at the docs. Now, with that out of the way, so we are going to get started with the simple project. So what I'll do is I'll create a new terminal. Okay, come on. Wait, I think I should switch off my video because my laptop is dying. It's a problem. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go back. And I will create a new Next.js project here. So the way you do that is, so if you have not installed a few things, like you have to install these one time, right? So till here. So this will install like the Node.js and then the JavaScript frameworks, etc. inside that. Okay. And once you're done with this is how you create a project. So every time. So just copy this, paste, and say add latest. I'll add these comments, so don't worry. And use the name for the project. So I'll say new0 and so it says user version, okay to proceed, yes. Okay, so it is up. So that's all it actually takes. Okay, so now we're going to do is open a new window. Open that in a cursor window.
Bala, could you explain the command that you ran previously? Like,
yeah, I will. So this npx is the command for node packet like manager. So npm is what I know. Like this npx, I'm not sure, but it is very related.
Okay.
Okay, so Node is basically your JavaScript node base. It's a
Okay.
like JavaScript framework. Okay, and we are saying create Next.js. So create Next.js app is what this command actually does. Latest means use the latest version of Next.js. Okay, which right now is 15 or so. Minus E is with the with Supabase default built-in. So you can simply install Next.js, which is not a problem. Okay. But now we are installing with Supabase. It is optional actually. Actually, it maybe makes sense to not do Supabase because currently in our app we don't need it. We're not doing any authentication or whatever. And finally, this is the name of the app, New0 Frontend. So if you see the project name, it will become Frontend under which everything is done.
So right now it is still not connected to your specific Supabase database yet, right? Like
nothing. So basically, what they do is they give you Supabase creates these pre-configurations. Okay. If you go to env, you just have to give your project URL.
Okay.
So that will sort out all the things that you have.
Got it. Got it.
But given we are not working with Supabase in this thing, let me delete this application and I'll create one without Supabase. The process is slightly different. RF Frontend. Just remove this Supabase. So now it'll ask me some questions. So do you like to use TypeScript? Okay. So TypeScript is it's a version within JavaScript. So I don't know the exact difference, but people say the syntax and other things are slightly different within that itself. So I'm not too sure. I have not read about it, so I don't want to comment too much on this. But TypeScript, the defaults are typically yes. So TypeScript, ESLint. So ESLint is basically it validates small syntax issues. Like for example, if you're using apostrophe in one of the text, it recommends saying that hey, apostrophe is not a good habit, but probably you should use something else. Or if you have imported but not used within the application, it says hey, you imported but you have not used, probably you should remove it. So it makes sure that it corrects those things. So it's there's nothing wrong with saying it as no, but S is quite useful. Okay. Tailwind CSS is so shared CN is built on top of this framework called Tailwind CSS, which is a very easy to use CSS framework. So yes. SRC directory, no. This is your personal preference. I like to use no. So this is a new concept. Okay, so this is a Next.js concept. You don't necessarily have to know. Just say yes to app router. There are like when you look at these pages, right? So for example, here I have a /sign, and then you have probably /signup. I have /dashboard. I have like onboarding. I have all these different pages. Okay. So the routing of the pages, subpages, etc. So there are two types of frameworks that Next.js uses. The old one is called pages router, but the new one is called app router. So engineers have their own preference on why they do this. I have found app router to be much easier. Only difference is that there will be an app directory. The directory structure will be slightly different, and how it routes will be slightly different. So app router works. Let's say yes. Turbo pack, say no. So turbo pack is only useful if you have one master application and you have multiple web apps within that. You're not going to do any of that. I wouldn't recommend doing this. It became too complicated when I tried to do this. So I say no. Customize the import alias by default. This is yes. Import alias will be configured. This is yes, and done. Okay, so it takes a second. See, most of the pains that I have had in my experience is with setting it up. So once you set up and once you have the basic page running, it becomes much easier. Okay, so this part's a little confusing. So I'll do New0 Frontend. Okay, so this now we have the successful Next.js application. So what I'm going to do is I'll explain how this thing, or well, let's run dev. So this is a process to run, guys. This is a command. Like this command is what you have to run. This is like the standard. The reason why this happens is node packet manager. So you're telling a node packet manager to run. This is the name of the environment. So the name of the environment will be present in all the things. So here, so it's a development environment, next dev. So dev is what is getting used over here. I'm sure some internal capabilities. Basically, you want to build this app to be published to things. You run build. If you want to test it in development, you say dev. It automatically picks up the right configurations. Run this. So your app is up. I'm going to open this link. Okay, so this is a default page that Next.js provides. So we've not configured anything with respect to our application, but your app is up. Okay, it's a default page in localhost. Okay, so now your basic app is set. Now let's understand how the project is structured, and we'll see how do we edit and make sure it aligns with whatever I'm doing. Now, a few things to note. So .next is basically all the modules and other things it installs. So this never gets checked in. So you don't have to worry about that. Sorry, node modules where it is getting installed, the modules are installed. .next is Next.js related, all the things, packages. You don't have to worry about that. Public is where you save all your images. Okay, so if you have your logo, you have your fav icon, you have all the things. Public is a place you can do. You have your own directory structure in that. That's all about it. The main thing you'll be worried about is /app. Okay, so when you, if you remember, we use this concept called app router. So app router starts with app. It looks for an apps directory, and within app, the page, this page is displayed. So within each directory, there is a thing called page.esx. So this page will have exactly what this page actually does. For example, if I search for get started by editing, so get started by editing. Editing, say, edit this page. So you can edit this page. Okay. So simply, what's happening is you edit this page gets edited. So this page is under slash. Why is it under slash? Because the page.tsx is present under app. It takes everything within app, it just renders it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one more page directory called, let's say, settings. Okay, within settings, what I'll do is I'll use a page.tsx. Settings. Rename it to page.tsx. I'll say settings page here, and I will change the logo to file.svg. Okay, so now if I go to /settings, okay, that's it. So that's all Next.js is. Like, all you have to do is just go to create different directories. Each of the directory page, whatever you want to display, you simply display that. Okay. Now, for example, so if you want to go to this page, so we wanted to have two pages. One is today's news and settings. So what I will do is I will say, so settings page is already there, and I'll create one more thing called news and put it under news. Okay, so simple as this. Now I have all three pages. Then now all I have to do is just go and edit the page according to this guidelines. So before we get there, what we'll do is we'll install ShatCN. We've not installed ShatCN yet because that's going to give those beautiful UIs that we spoke about. So I'm going to do this, and I will go to ShatCN installation page. Just go to ShatCN. The link is already there. Go to installation. Go to Next.js. All you have to do is simply run this command. Okay. Now the thing is, I've done something in my project for me, because of which it doesn't work for me, but it used to work before. So all you probably have to do is just like run this command. It will automatically work. ShatCN gets installed, so you don't have to worry about it. But if in case it doesn't work, there is also this process of installing manually. Okay, so it just takes 2 minutes. Like, let me install it. So I'll open this guide. We're using post CSS. All I have to do is just copy paste this stuff. So we're manually installing all the tails in CSS and other things. That's all. Then go to post CSS config.njs. Post CSS config.njs. Plugins, post CSS. So it is already there. Okay. Then go to that's all. So this is done. So next what I do is I just copy, paste it here. Installed. Then go to tsconfig. There's tsconfig. So tsconfig, it already has the paths. So paths. I know these things because I've done it many times, but it won't have this base URL. So just copy the base URL, paste it over here. So this config is done. Then go to style. So we don't have an src directory. We have a /app directory. So all you have to do is styles google.css. So just copy the entire styles. So styles is basically, it says it has the guidelines on what is the background color, what is the foreground color, what is the sidebar primary, all of these configurations. What is the radius, all of those things. So we're simply creating a global CSS file. So you can create it anywhere. Create it as global.css. Oh, already exists. Huh? Okay, just go here. Important CSS. So background, foreground, theme. I think I can just replace this. Okay, so we've done this. Libutils. So this is something we should create, not under app. So just here, just lib. Oops. Okay. And finally create a components.json. Just check the things. There's SRC styles, right? So instead of that, we should say app styles. Okay, that's it. So now what we can do is we can just go to each of the components and install. For example, if you want to install buttons, there is a command to install button. Just go say install. Just say use force. So now under components, there is a UI folder and the button already gets installed. So all these components will keep getting installed. Okay. So what you can do is just go to each of these components. Whatever components you need, you can just go and install it. I like the sidebar that these guys have. So if you go to sidebar, so they have a very nice sidebar which is like fully configurable. So it also uses a lot of inbuilt components. So we'll start with the sidebar. So, sidebar. Suppose. So it has other files, like other components it internally uses, it automatically created. Okay. Now this is done. What we're going to do is we are going to create a sidebar with two options. Okay. Just let me run this. Okay. We'll start with the agent. See, usually if you remember the last session, we have to go to settings, cursor settings, rules. We have to add project rules. Application. Hey, who is joining at 10:40? Slow, you're joining at 10:40. Miss all of this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to create a simple this project. NextJs application for user app. The app gets user's name, mobile, topic of interest, and saves them hobbies. Second is the app can also call an API to get the relevant news on the topic. Okay, so then I'll say, I mean, obviously it should be more elaborate. We talk about a lot of stuff. I'll give you some guidelines on what are things that we should do. Actually, why don't we do that right now? I'll see if we can put these things also out in the website. So basically, what I do is I use the tech stack. Okay, so we use Supabase, we use Supabase a lot. So this basically means is it tries to fetch block by block. So I can think a lot about performance. Okay, so what I've been trying to do in my application is how do you get the response time within less than 100 milliseconds? I've been able to get it like less than 400, 300 right now, but like, that's what I'm trying to do. So you need to do a lot of optimizations around it. So one of the ways SWR actually does is that it fetches it block by block, and whatever is frequently used, it caches it at its own. So you don't really have to do a lot of forceful updates. It's like some caching mechanism. Okay, so I use this. So these are things that you can start using. So then I have best practices. So server-side rendering. Basically, this is something that NextJS provides. So basically what it is typically when you have a page, it comes to the server and the front end actually renders the whole thing. But in some cases, the server itself can render the page and send the entire HTML. So it's much faster in some use cases. So it's also something that gets used in all the acceptable places. Okay. Then I have some rules. These things you can ignore. These are like very specific to what I do. Then I also typically give a directory structure. So in this case, it's very easy. So if we say command okay, project structure. So just run this command. It gives the structure of the project. Okay, so you can just copy paste it. So here, if we run, okay, I think it is taking all the structure without. Yeah, I forgot the command. I'll see if I can share the command, but basically it gives you the entire structure. So what I typically do is I put the structure in place and I will write down stuff like this about what each file is being used for. So it knows exactly where to search and what to do, right? So these are things, these are good practices that you can follow. But in our case, it's pretty straightforward. So I don't need a lot of stuff. But what we will do is we'll also give the API credentials. So let's say API details. API to update users preferences. Go to Postman if you remember the last time, like the same APIs, just copy it, paste it. Okay. API fetch news. Okay, so now these APIs should have been exposed without authentication. So please never do this. This is very, very sensitive. So none of our applications should actually have this. So we have Supabase. Probably we'll talk about authentication separately, but in this case, we're just using it directly. And another thing, like we noticed that last time we uploaded a video, we uploaded the API keys also to the video. So I had to kind of rotate all the keys. This is one of the most important thing that's happening with vibe coding because people are not understanding sensitive API keys they're publishing on YouTube. I saw a lot of people's OpenAI keys got misused. So whenever you're doing any of these, make sure you don't check in. You are in case of front end, Git will automatically ignore your env.local .env files. But in case of Python, it doesn't do it. Okay, so these are things we should be very, very careful about. So simple mistakes can cost a lot. Okay, cool. So we are done. What we will do is say like understand the project details from application rules. Objective is to create the page for what is the first page that we are going to do. We'll talk about settings first. So tag settings. Okay. So the settings page should collect user's name, phone number, and this topics. Call the for saving, call the API. This. Okay. Use shared CN forms. I'll say handle errors properly with user-friendly messaging. Show loading states for buttons. So these are things like, for example, if you don't have a loading state, people might click twice. So problems like that will happen. So okay, so have a okay. All right, so let's ask questions. Okay. So I typically would ask it to kind of, so we'll do is we don't do any implementation. Just tell me what should be changed. Post structure. Once I approve, then you can make the changes. Okay, let's see what happens. Structure. So we have NextJs with app router, chassis, and components, into form submission, loading states, and error handling. Page.tx, components, settings, topic selector. Okay, so it itself creates some components, which is fine. So there are, so tsx are all the front end files where all the definitions are there. There is a .ts file in case of settings. So what it does is it has all the API calls, just the scripts. If you have API calls, it just goes over. Okay, so that's how you can think about it. So basically, page.tsx is the main file where settings will be there. The form it puts in a separate component, and the dropdown for topic selection it puts in a separate component, so that it can reuse it in other places. Then for API calls, it creates a separate file. Okay, this is what it is doing. Topics, it is a component, button, loading, okay, topic selector, reusable component for topic selection. Can be used for multi-select dropdown, predefined list of topics, ability to add custom ones. Actually, this is something we don't need. Actually, let it be there, it'll be nice. User input, form validation, API call, success error handling, UI feedback. Okay, should it persist the form data in any state? Solution appear successful validation. No need. I mean, actually, yeah, let's do that. We have predefined list of topics. Say AI, what else? Trade, economics. Rate limiting, not right now. Do it later. Specific phone number format validation, yeah, yes, please. Have some basic checks. No confirmation. accessibility requirements. Actually, no. No. Zod is fine, Sonar is fine, etc. So these are, it keeps creating some additional modules. So Zod is for form validations, Sonar is for notifications, hook form is also like for the forms and like all of these. So these are fine in my opinion. These things you'll know with experience, so don't worry too much about it. Okay, so now, yeah, these things seem fine. So let's go ahead. The implementation. Types. API response. So it has created the structure of the API response and the user settings. This is fine. API function. So it created a separate file to call the API. Localhost API v1 base URL. So here, instead of creating the base URL here, if we put this into a config in production, we can change it accordingly, right? So this is something will change. Can you select
Wait, what were you doing there again, Bala?
sorry?
Yeah.
So basically, see now the what is the previous one? Now the URL has gotten into code. So let's say we push to production. You have to go change the code for it. If we put it in an env file, we can do it separately. So that's kind of the idea.
I got it.
Okay, settings form seems okay. So all these errors is because these modules are not installed. So we'll do the installation, not a problem. Main settings page. It removed all the stuff and it was just calling these things. Seems okay. Can run this command also. Install. So the latest agent is starting to do the installation by itself also. So that's also good. Okay, so changes seem fine, but okay. So in NextJS, all the environmental variables start with the next public. I don't know why, but that's how it actually is. Just a trivia. Okay, now let's go to, because it's been running it automatically reload stuff. That is our tab. I wanted to go to settings, right? This is settings page. Form is not there. Oops. Form is there. Command and pop over. So, by the way, I'm sure you guys know, just to go to cursor settings, there is this thing called features. So there is this thing called docs. So for example, we're using shared C and Supabase, right? So what I do is I add those docs here. Like you just click add doc, provide the URL, it'll index. So you don't have to depend on its knowledge to go and update, because this is last updated by 2024, right? So it may not get the latest ones. So you always give the specific docs. And if you're working on a specific item, which is probably in one page, it makes sense to tag it over here. So it reads the top properly. So these are things that we can use very efficiently. Okay, let's see what happens. Hey, okay, not bad. So I'll say Bala. I'll give you some phone number. And say Madras. Oh, it's not allowing me to add custom topics. Okay. That topic selector. Allow me to add custom. So easy. Okay, let's see what I've changed. Plus handle key down. Seems fine. Put enter in the new topic. Okay, change the title. Seems okay. Let's try. Madras. Yeah, for two topics and return photo. Okay. Why is it not showing the list of topics? This should work. Actually, even before applying, we can check the UI changes. Oh, something's wrong here. Module not found. Which one? Badge is not there. Okay. Cool. Yes. Yeah. Nice. Okay. So, I mean, if you're working at front end, unfortunately, you have to keep opening this one. I'll clear this. I'll clear this. So I want to see what is happening with the API call. So now we have, let's see, I think I already have maybe save setting. Must be 10 digits. Okay. 10 digits now. Settings updated. Interesting. Okay. So now let's go to Superbase to have it open. Yeah. Let's see if it gets there. Oh yeah, lovely. Wait, I thought we had 4. No, only 3. Okay. This works. Any questions on this? Okay. So quickly, I know, I hope you guys have another 5 minutes. I'll quickly show one thing. This is important. So this is individual page changes. But what would be useful is for us to have a sidebar here, right? And the way we think about it, sidebar should not be changing for every page. If you're reloading sidebar, it's a lot of effort, right? And it will show a flicker the screen, etc. Ideally, what I want to have is I have the sidebar as a layout, and just within this box, all these UI should keep changing. That's much easier. Okay. So there is this thing called layout.tsx here. Okay. So the layout is like a base file. Like what is the default background? Like what is the so it has this metadata and other things. So it has this basic stuff which is actually set up. What I can do is within this layout, I can add this sidebar also. So sidebar will be there everywhere. Okay. So that's how the layout.tsx syntax actually works. But let's try and do this. Awesome. Let's do the next step on the global sidebar from chat CN. And go on the top. There is no footer. Sidebar items are one settings. Link to the settings page. 2 is news. Link to the news page. So it creates a separate sidebar component. Okay, and then it updates layout if you see, because it's going to be a global one. Okay, so in the layout you see just before your children, it just has a sidebar. Okay, let's see. Oh, something is wrong. I mean, I can either go do this. So it says use client directive. So there's something because the client rendered component uses client, etc. But all I can do is I can just copy this. Control C, Control V, debug please. Right. So it just adds this use client. Okay. So now let's go to settings. So the logo is a little off. Okay. So can you, and also the interesting thing is this cursor actually makes good SVG logos. Okay, nice SVG for our app. So using file.svg. Let's see how it is. Cool. So there is a Newzero app logo. We have news. Clicking on news goes to news. Clicking on settings comes to settings. You can create ads, save settings, etc. So we've not loaded from the database. We're only allowing it to save. So it keeps coming as empty. So those are things that we should add, right? So this page also you can actually add something similar, connect to the same database. Okay. Yeah, so you can keep middling after this, just like playing around with things. So we have to add some padding over here. We have to update this page. We have to make sure that when it loads, it fetches from the database. So for that, you need to connect with Supabase, etc. So if you want specific sessions, we can actually do over there, but it is very straightforward. Now, quickly, what I'll do is I'll connect to Git and I will update. Oops, I hope I didn't. Okay. So let's quickly connect to Git and push this to production, right? So before pushing it to production, always do npm run build. It will show a lot of errors that you want to fix, otherwise it will not get deployed. Okay. So those things we need to fix. And I will go to GitHub. New. Will be public. Create. Okay, interesting. By now it should have shown some error. I'm surprised there is no error. Oh, there is one. See, topic selector. So here it says. So these are errors I know. So basically, if you use quotes, right, it says don't use this ones. Just simply use ampersand quote. So these are things it suggests. Which line is this? D9. Is a different error. 120. Yeah. Okay, so 120 both are done. So 89. This page has. So it says you defined import a module, but you have not used it, which is inefficient because unnecessarily you are importing it. So then 89, there is a bug. Let's try again. So disturbing code. This is something you should be very careful about because it wants to fix one error, it'll just go replace everything else. So these are things we should be very careful with cursor. Properly typing given parameter, etc. So what changes has it made? So there are 2 changes here. So one is mouse event. Okay, this is good. This is also good. So I can accept it. Let me run it again. Yeah, see, it replaced it again.
Close that up. Yeah.
Yeah, cursor does this. This is very irritating. That's why we should be very careful. So what I do is whenever I make a change myself, I go and inform cursor that I have done this. So that's a good strategy that works. All right. So I think there are no issues. So here it says, if you want to understand this a little better, anything that is O is static. That means the page is already created. So it's much faster. Anything which has like this integration symbol becomes dynamic, right? So let's quickly do a git init. Okay, so then I'll say add dot and git commit. Okay, git branch. I use master for some reason. I'm just used to it, but you can use whatever you want. So if you see, git ignore already ignores your env local. This is very important, and also the node modules because otherwise it becomes too big. Node modules.next, etc. But most important thing is the env local. Please make sure you don't push that. Okay, done. And master. Okay, so this is pushed to git. Done. So what we will do is last step, we'll go to version. I'll create a new project. I will import a git repository. User. We've not given access to it, so it depends on how you set it up. Whether you expose all your things or you just give access. Go here, you have repositories. Let's say user front end, I'll give access. Save. Done. So user front end import. User front end is, or I'll just call it user. Deploy. Takes about a minute, but any questions so far? I don't know if it was useful.
You have to go through once and do it parallelly. So
Yeah, actually we should try and figure out how to do that. I think we are rushing a little bit in these sessions.
advantage of video is you can pause and later on you can do it.
Oh God, there's some error. Okay. So you forgot to add this in the environmental variables. Okay. So where do we sorry. Go to settings, environmental variables. If you remember, we had that thing, right? Okay. See, the problem is it is no longer running. Like if you want to do production deployment, you need a public URL. You can't simply say that your backend is running on a your backend is running on a local system, right? So what we will do is, I think TPK showed in the last time. We'll use ngrok for the command ngrok to the 8000. Just copy this URL and I will paste it here. Okay, so I'll say redeploy. Redeploy. Redeployment. Any other questions on this?
Nothing from my end. I mean, I'll just I still need to get my hands dirty properly.
Yeah, these things you'll only understand if you try to do it yourself. And it's not straightforward, guys. Like Python for me was straightforward. This wasn't. It took me a lot of time. So we didn't change the homepage yet, but it's deployed. So this is a public URL. You yourself can actually try it if you want. I'll send it over chat. Great. Okay.
Nice.
That's good, right? Yeah. So this is all like that's all it takes for it to like deploy something to public also. Okay. All right. Any other question before we close the session? That's all I had for today.
Bala, I have a pretty basic one. So when the deployment happened, it took the build that was created and it basically deployed on some servers, right? That's in simplistic terms, that's what was happening, correct?
So when we ran the npm run build on our local, we just tried to see if there are build issues. If there is, able to successfully build.
Okay.
Finally, we just pushed the code to GitHub, and Versal tried to build it on its servers, and it deployed it on its servers. That's all it did. So we
Understood.
run locally only to make sure if there are no build issues.
But why was that key not available, not highlighted when we were building internally?
Correct, because we had a .dme local.
Okay. Got it. And that did not go to Git. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
That's the problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like just please try it. Otherwise, you'll just build it. Let me know if there are any questions. I'm happy to help out if you're stuck somewhere.
So Bala, Versal created a default domain. If you want to have your own domain also, that is possible.
That is definitely possible. It's pretty straightforward also. Just go to here. There's an option to assign domain here. Oh, sorry.
Bala, you're not sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, my bad. Battery is also so Versal has, so this is your project. All the projects will be there. Open any project, and within that you have domains. Okay. So just add a domain. For example, if I say dot applied club. Okay. So we say add domain. Just copy and paste this in your domain server, like your, if you're using Namecheap or Google Domains is not there anymore, but whatever you're using, just copy paste this part. That's all it takes. It takes about like half an hour. Rarely it takes about 2 days sometimes, but it comes up. That's all.
Got it. Got it. Thanks.
And add all the environmental variables over here. Okay, so just make sure to keep adding this. You can do cron jobs and other things. There is one thing that if you have a lot of processing happening, there is something called fluid compute. So there is something called fluid compute, so which can handle like much more capabilities. Like, because most of my things are like very small, I don't really care about it. But you can enable it. So here you see fluid compute. So you enable this, it can handle much more traffic. It has some implications, but like for my scale, it is not useful, so I don't do that. And the best thing about Vercel is here. There is a setting you can change that also. If I make some additional changes and I push it to GitHub, as soon as a new push, it automatically creates a deployment. It automatically publishes it to production. So you really don't have to come back here again. As long as you make sure that the build is successful, you check into GitHub, it will automatically deploy. Okay, so from the master branch. So that's also something that's very useful. Yeah, you have like logs, like yeah, so you have all these logs which are actually happening. You have observability, what is happening. So all of these things you will actually find quite useful. Any other question? Okay. Superb, guys. I think we are way over time today, but hopefully this was helpful. And let me know. Just let me know if you are stuck somewhere or if you want to try out something else. I'm happy to help out.
Cool. Thanks,
Thanks,
Bala.
Bala.
This is
Very helpful.
Thanks, Bala.
yeah.